At 6:47 a.m. on April 23, 2025, the USS William P. Lawrence, an Arleigh Burke-class destroyer, activates its automatic identification system, Aegis, as it enters the Taiwan Strait, a 130-kilometer choke point between mainland China and Taiwan. Flipping on the AIS here is like waving a red flag in a lion's den, broadcasting the ship's position to all, including a Chinese air base 53 miles away. It's Chinese Navy Day, and the U.S. has just gate-crashed the celebration. At the air base, a radar operator alerts commanders, triggering a scramble horn that shatters the morning calm. Two J-16 pilots, mid-T, sprint to their fighters, knowing their twin-engine jets need minutes to warm up. By 6:52 a.m., the pilots are airborne, armed with PL-10 heat seekers and PL-15 radar-guided missiles, air-to-air weapons, signaling a provocative show of force, not a direct attack. If they carried YJ-83 anti-ship missiles, the Lawrence would be in mortal danger. This confrontation, set against the backdrop of Russia's collapsing war in Ukraine and China's emboldened stance, teeters on the edge of war, with global security hanging in the balance. The Taiwan Strait incident unfolds amid heightened global tensions. Russia's war in Ukraine, now in its fourth year since Putin's 2022 invasion, is crumbling. The UK Ministry of Defense reported on June 30, 2025, that 20,538 Russian soldiers have gone AWOL, with 18,159 facing AWOL charges and 17,721 convictions, per Mediazona. This morale collapse, coupled with Ukraine's July 2nd HIMARS strike killing Russian Major General Mikhail Gudkov, exposes Russia's fragility, per Newsweek. China, a key Russian ally supplying drones and components, per Reuters, uses the strait to flex its muscle, signaling to the U.S. that it can challenge Western dominance. The Lawrence's transit, a routine freedom of navigation operation, tests China's red lines, risking escalation in a region where Taiwan sovereignty is a flashpoint. President Volodymyr Zelensky's July 2025 Kyiv speech, "We fight for freedom, not empires," resonates as Ukraine's defiance inspires Taiwan and the U.S., per CNN. The Taiwan Strait, narrowing to 130 kilometers, is a geopolitical fault line. The Lawrence threads between territorial limits, 12 nautical miles from China and Taiwan, under international law, per UNCLOS. Its SBY-1 radar, part of the Aegis combat system, paints a 250-mile picture, tracking American jets, a China Airlines flight from Taipei, and fishing boats, per the transcript. At 6:47 a.m., the AIS broadcast invites scrutiny, and by 6:52 a.m., two J-16s are airborne, climbing to 10,000 feet. Their Type 1475 ASA radar, with 1,760 transmit-receive modules, focuses energy like a laser, painting the Lawrence while evading detection elsewhere, per the transcript. U.S. pilots call it the Ghost for its stealthy precision. The Lawrence's rules of engagement, RE, are clear. Weapons free only in self-defense, a restraint tested as the J-16s close in. By 7:11 a.m., the Lawrence's SLQ-32 electronic warfare suite detects two X-band radars with military pulse repetition frequencies, per the transcript. The lead J-16 pilot rolls inverted at 20,000 feet, diving to 500 feet at 450 knots, his WMD 7 electro-optical pod locking onto the Lawrence's superstructure. The pod stabilization lets him read hull numbers through jet wash, feeding data to his helmet-mounted display. His PL-15 missiles can engage from 120 miles beyond the Lawrence's SM-2 defenses, but today's mission is a capabilities display, closing to within a mile to prove a point. China can threaten U.S. assets at will. The wingman, 5 miles east, forms a bracket, ensuring one jet has a clear angle if the Lawrence locks onto the other, per the transcript. At 1,000 feet, the lead J-16 thunders over the Lawrence at 300 feet altitude, its jet wash spiking the ship's anemometer to 95 knots. Sailors brace against the artificial hurricane, logging the encounter at 7 hours 11 minutes and 34 seconds. J-16, 300 feet, 50 feet lateral separation. In the Lawrence's Combat Information Center, CIC, the Aegis system tracks the J-16s, calculating firing solutions for RIM 162 ESSM missiles in its vertical launch cells. At 3 miles, the J-16s enter the ESSM's range but pass the SM-2's minimum engagement zone, leaving the Sea Whiz, a 20mm Gatling gun firing 4,500 rounds per minute, as the last offense, per the transcript. The Sea Whiz locks on but remains in standby, as the ROE prohibit firing without a direct threat. The J-16's alternate passes every 2 minutes, one from the stern, one from the beam, at 300 to 400 feet, calibrated to provoke without triggering a response. The lead pilot slows to 150 knots. Flaps extended, maintaining a lock on the bridge, demonstrating China's ability to track and threaten, per the transcript. The message is clear. If armed with YJ-83 anti-ship missiles, effective at 20 to 30 miles, the Lawrence would have seconds to react. By 7:38 a.m., the situation escalates. A Type 052D destroyer, the HIMARS, closes to 8 miles, its Type 346 a radar locking onto the Lawrence, per the transcript. Its YJ-18 anti-ship missiles, capable of Mach 3 in their terminal phase, remain cold but loom as a threat. 2 fresh J-16s arrive, carrying PL-10 and PL-15 missiles, executing a high-speed pass at 200 feet, lower than safety norms. The second J-16 crosses 150 feet above the bow, 500 feet ahead, its afterburners painting orange cones visible from the bridge. At 7:52 a.m., the harassment peaks. One J-16 drops to 120 feet, 200 feet off the port side, while another passes 400 feet above the starboard beam. The HIMARS accelerates to 30 knots, closing the vise. The Lawrence's Sea Whiz spins up, Vulcan cannons tracking both jets, a button press away from unleashing a tungsten storm. For 5 seconds, the Indo-Pacific's future hangs in the balance, per the transcript. As tensions peak, the J-16s climb steeply, low on fuel, and the HIMARS shifts to parallel the Lawrence, avoiding a direct intercept. The Lawrence continues south at 18 knots, its crew logging an encounter with professional detachment. The CIC screens, cluttered with radar returns, clear as the jets retreat. The confrontation, a masterclass in brinkmanship, ends without shots fired, but the message resonates. China can push the U.S. to the edge, exploiting ROE constraints. The Lawrence's crew, hearts pounding, processes how close they came to conflict per the transcript. The Taiwan Strait incident occurs as Russia's war in Ukraine unravels, amplifying global stakes. The UK MOD June 30th report noted 20,538 Russian soldiers faced AWOL or desertion charges, with 18,159 AWOL cases and 17,721 convictions, per Media Zona. Soldiers like Vladimir, per World Crunch, chose prison over death. Better this than lying under a bush in Ukraine. Brutal Dido-Shina hazing, beatings and gladiatorial death matches, per the Express, drives desertions. Poor training, 5 days for recruits, per the MOD, and medical neglect, no beds or first aid, per Transformer Telegram, exacerbate Russia's 1 million casualties, per SEPA. Ukraine's July 2nd HIMARS strike on a Kursk command post, killing Major General Gudkov, mirrors the Taiwan Strait precision, disrupting Russia's Sumy offensive, per Newsweek. Ukraine's HIMARS, firing GMLRS rockets up to 43 miles, devastated Russia's war effort. The July 2nd Kartsk ammo depot strike destroyed millions in assets for $50,000 per HUR. Partisans like Alina, 23, from Zaporizhia, relay intelligence via encrypted apps, enabling strikes, per BBC Ukraine. SBU operative Andriy Yusov uses Sentinel-2 imagery to target supply lines, per HUR. Ukraine's $4 billion drone program, per Defense Express, produces 3,000 FPV drones monthly, amplifying its edge. The August 2024 Kursk incursion, holding 400 square miles, exposed Russia's logistical failures, per Reuters. Ukraine's precision contrasts with China's harassment, showcasing effective resistance against authoritarian aggression. The U.S. faces criticism for inconsistent support. The $435 billion in Ukraine aid, per the Kiel Institute, prioritizes defense over victory. The U.S. paused Patriot shipments in July 2025, per the Kiev Independent, risking Russian escalation. In the Taiwan Strait, U.S. restraint reflects cautious ROE, but the Pentagon stockpile concerns, per the Guardian, mirror delays in Ukraine aid. The EU's $70 billion gas payments to Russia in 2022 exceeded Ukraine aid, per GIS, sustaining Putin's war. The West feared red lines, a Kiev Post analyst said, delaying decisive action in both theaters. China's aggression in the Taiwan Strait leverages Russia's Ukraine collapse. Supplying Russia with drones, per Reuters, China tests U.S. resolve, betting on Washington's distraction. The Hufei's YJ-18 missiles and J-16's KG-800 jamming pods, capable of blinding Aegis radars, signal China's readiness to escalate, per the transcript. Beijing's Arctic and Siberian ambitions, per the Hill, strain its Russian alliance, yet China exploits Western hesitation to assert dominance. Sanctioning Chinese firms, as suggested by Michael Carpenter in Foreign Affairs, could weaken this axis, aligning with Ukraine's strategy to isolate Russia's backers. Russia's brutality, killing 968 civilians from December 2024 to May 2025, per UN report, contrasts with Ukraine's precision, targeting military assets, per Ukrinform. Zelensky's defiance, "We'll fight with shovels if we must," per CNN, echoes Taiwan's resolve against China's threats. Ukrainian partisans like Alina risk torture for intelligence, per BBC Ukraine, while U.S. sailors on the Lawrence, like Lieutenant Sarah Chun, monitor radar with calm precision, per Navy logs. Both face authoritarian aggression, underscoring the global fight for sovereignty. Carpenter's roadmap for Ukraine, seizing $300 billion in Russian assets, co-producing weapons, and isolating China, applies to the Indo-Pacific. Assets could fund Taiwan's defenses, per Defense Express. Germany's $5 billion missile deal and Denmark's $79 million pact, per Defense Industry Europe, model U.S.-Taiwan cooperation. Sanctioning Chinese firms and exploiting Arctic tensions, per the Hill, could deter Beijing. The U.S. must resume robust aid to Ukraine and Taiwan, per CNN, to counter authoritarian advances. Zelensky's leadership inspires globally, viewed 10 million times on Telegram. Ukrainian drone operator Mykola Kovalenko strikes for his occupied family, per HUR. On the Lawrence, Captain Daniel Rivera navigates the strait, balancing ROE with readiness, per Navy Times. Russian conscripts, like a course survivor, lament Medusa, were cannon fodder. The contrast highlights the stakes. Freedom versus suppression. By 7:52 a.m., as the J-16s retreat, the Lawrence sails on, its crew vigilant, ready for the next challenge. The Taiwan Strait showdown and Ukraine's HIMARS triumph signal a critical moment. With Russia collapsing and China testing limits, can the West seize this opportunity? Subscribe, like, and comment for more insights.